Today we're dropping a video we've been promising for you guys for a while on how to set up and work the Dark Matter Enabled filter. I'm going to try my best because this is a very confusing topic. It's hard to explain exactly how it works, man. But we're going to get right into the video, man. This is the filter. Best bet is color Dark Matter. Just raise your minimum bid up to 100K, minimum buyout to 500, and then turn on Enabled. So let's get right to it, man. First things first is you need to buy all of the dark matters that are a buyout on your console, man. There's a couple different ways to do this. The way I recommend is to put your color to dark matter, put your minimum buyout to 500. Don't leave it, you leave exclude user owned cards on disabled and search. And sadly, you have to scroll through this with a pen and a paper or a notepad or whatever, man. Just scroll through and write down every single card that is on here. So that way you know which cards you need to buy. So you're gonna scroll through Joe Johnson and Fuego, so you put the theme. Michael Jordan, all time. Bill Walton, Rush. Caron Butler, Rush. Okay, we already wrote down Michael Jordan. Dwight Howard, Elemental. So that way you know which cards you need to buy, man. You're gonna scroll through. It's going to setting up this enable filter is not an easy process or a quick process the very first time you do it. For the most reliable and cheapest 2K23 MT, hit up my sponsor at NBA2King.com and use code GRINDS for 5% off. Also, if you need any grinding services, contact Rose NBA on Twitter. The link is in the description. So you need to scroll through, write every card down here that is a buyout, and then you're gonna find the cheapest available price of the card. So like this Jamal Murray right here, 28K. He is a playoffs card, Dark Matter. You can buy his cheapest version. So once you write down everyone's names, we're gonna use Jamal Murray for an example. Same thing applies for like Sean Kemp and whatnot, but Jamal Murray, in this case, you wanna write down, search his name, Jamal Murray, and you're gonna put your theme to playoffs, just like you wrote down. And then you're gonna find the cheapest one. You saw that Dark Matter is 28K. That's not how much he goes for, his Dark Matter, but you can get his other card for cheaper. Like this Pink Diamond is his lowest version of the card, 11,900. You want to go ahead and buy that because that will enable the Dark Matter. That is for the playoff cards. Let's do, for example, like that Dwight Howard. Obviously he doesn't have an Evo, he's not a playoff card, so you would just put Dwight Howard, what is he, Elemental, put the theme, Elemental, and then you're just going to scroll your maximum buyout up until you find the cheapest Dwight Howard, which is probably like 30-40K or so. I don't know what he's going for. Just keep scrolling this up a little bit at a little until you get the cheapest one to pop up, and then you go ahead and buy it. Once you buy these cards, you need to send them to your collection. Add to collection. I already have this. I'm just giving an example because they'll pop up here once you buy each one of them. Very important to note, guys. Let me see. I'll show you real quick. So like this Giannis, send to collection. Once you buy all these enable filters, if you have any expensive Dark Matter, all right, like the Luka is even a better example. Say you have Luka, you want to snipe Luka, he's a snipe, he goes for like almost 200,000. So if you have any expensive dark matters in your collection, you need to make sure you send them to your auctions. Otherwise, once you enable, this card will never pop up. So if I start working the enable filter right now with this Luka in my collection, he will never ever pop up on this filter, even if someone puts him up, because he'll technically be enabled. And that's what this exclude user owned cards function is for, is so that you don't see any cards that are in your collection. I forgot to turn it on. So that's why it's very important. If you have any expensive dark matters in your collection that you do want to snipe, that are snipes, you need to send them to your auctions. If they're sitting here in your auctions, they do not count as enabled, they will still pop up. So if you have any expensive dark matter that's not any of these buyout ones, you want to make sure you send them to your auctions anytime you are sniping on the enable filter. It's also, if you have any, like if you locked in for a Minute Bowl, that's going to drastically affect you on the enable filter because you can't send all those hero cards to your auction since they're locked in. And obviously the hero cards are all very expensive. You want to snipe these cards, man. You know what I'm saying? You want to snipe these. So that's tough. That's something to consider. Also, do I think enabled is worth it, man, guys? This filter is expensive. I would say it costs 1.5 million MT to set up this dark matter enable filter because there's so many dark matters you need to buy. So if you cannot snipe every single day for at least 5 hours, man, I would not recommend working the enable filter or buying it. I wouldn't say it's worth it. It's great filter, the best filter in the game. You can make so much MT on it. I made 1.6 million last week, 1.5 million the week before, probably approaching 3 million this week. It's an insane filter to work, but I spend almost 8 hours every single day on this filter. So If you can't put in good time on this, it's not gonna make up for your 1.5 million MT that you have to spend, and it just keeps getting more expensive every week when more Dark Matters come out. Like today, I dropped about 250,000 enabling the new Dark Matters that came out today. So every time we get a drop, it gets more expensive and more expensive. So keep that in mind, guys. Also, again, if you have the heroes set enabled, you won't be able to send them, you won't ever be able to snipe those when you enable. So keep that in mind when you want to decide if you want to work this enable filter. Now, the hard part to explain, that is how you buy all the Dark Matters, man. The tough part to explain is how to set up this filter and make sure you're working a working filter. You see how I have here, man. We have some cards before the 4-hour mark. This card ends in 48 minutes. This card ends 2 hours, 52 minutes. The following card doesn't end for 5 hours and 49 minutes. 90% of all snipes get thrown up, posted for 4 hours, a 4-hour auction, which means that it'll pop up in between these two cards if a snipe pops up. So your goal, your whole goal to work this filter and make sure it's working is to get any one card after the 4-hour mark. Because you can't just put Dark Matter, couldn't just do color Dark Matter, minimum buyout 500, turn on enabled. That just blew my mind. Because I don't have everybody enabled. That just blew my mind for a second, I apologize. You can't do this because once you enable everybody, like I have all these cards, that's how I have a working scroll out of my collection right now because I need them, but 2K game does not work properly. So you should be able to send all those cards to your collection, turn Dark Matter on, put your minimum buyout to 500 and turn on enabled, and it should work. But it'll show no cards here and no snipe will ever pop up. The filter is broken. It will not, even if a snipe goes up, see now the filter is broken even though. So we just saw that there's cards up. I didn't change anything, but the filter's broken. It just keeps popping up. No auctions found, no auctions found, which just means it's a broken filter. So that's why you have to get a scroll. The best way to do this, man, is to find a card that has a lot. The goal is to get as many cards off that has to be enabled on. Apologize if I'm not making any sense. This is hard to explain, man. So like these new cards, there's going to be a ton of these Jaylen Browns. They just dropped today. There's going to be a ton posted. When I search for this Jaylen Brown, there's going to be a ton listed up for 100K. But your goal is to find a card that has a lot of cards posted for under like 60,000 MT bid. So you can raise your minimum bid up over that price point of where the huge majority of them are going to be listed for. So that way when you enable it, if you have your minimum bid higher than an amount, it won't consider it as being enabled. So like Jaylen Brown, if I put this up to minimum bid 100K, which was why this isn't a good example. The best example is to use a card that maybe came out last week, like Joe Johnson. There's still going to be a ton of cards up for sale of Joe Johnson because it was just in packs, just came out of packs, but his price has settled. There won't be people trying to throw him up for 100K thinking maybe that's what he goes for. I just pulled him out of the pack. You see how many cards there are of this Jaylen Brown? He just came out today for 100K minimum bid, which means this scroll would be horrendous. It would work, it'd be a working filter, but you'd have to sit here and scroll through all these Jaylen Browns every time. So your goal is to find a card that has a lot of players up on the auction, like for example, Tyler Hero, but they're all listed for a lower price because he only goes for 50K or whatever he goes for. So see, 28K, 55K, there's a lot listed. So it's taking a ton of cards out of the equation of what you need to enable, but there's not so many that are listed up for 100K. So when you raise your minimum bid up, you're only seeing a few Tyler Hero cards. One Tyler Hero card when you raise your minimum bid up to 100K. So the best bet, it's just hit or miss, guys. You just need to think in mind of what cards just came out that will have a lot of cards posted, but not up for 100K. Like Tyler Hero is a great example, man. You just need to keep switching cards in and out of your collection until you get on a working filter that has any card after the 4-hour mark and as little cards in front of the 4-hour mark as possible. Like this scroll that I'm working right now, it changes all the time. This is what I'm working right now. I don't have Oscar Robertson, I don't have Trae Young, Tyler Hero, or this Michael Jordan in my collection. I also have James Harden out, who has no cards posted at 100K, but is helping me take cards out of the enabled equation, man. Hopefully this makes sense for you guys. The best bet on Xbox and PS is just go straight to raising your minimum bid to 100K and then just search for players. This is what I do a lot of times if I'm trying to figure out. I'll turn off enabled and I'll like type in J.R. Smith, his name is bugged. I'll type in like Draymond Green, let's see what he's got, and I'll search. Okay, he's got one card up for 22 hours. This would be a great card to remove from my collection because Draymond Green probably has a lot of cards up for sale for a cheap price, so that'll take a lot of cards off the enable filter, but only will add one card to my scroll. See how many Draymond Greens are up for lower price, but just one up for 100k. So he's a great option to use, man. You just have to keep guessing, checking who's gonna have just a little amount on your scroll when you raise your bid up so high, but it's gonna take a lot of cards off the filter, man. That's about as best as I can explain it for you guys. Hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions, man. I've been trying to drop this video for you guys for a while. It's just a little bit confusing, man. It is, once you get started, man, it's a, you know, before you get started, it's a confusing process, but once you get into it, it's pretty easy, man. And you can make a lot of MT on this filter. If you guys want to see the previous video that I dropped, click the video that's popping up on screen, man. J Grinds out.